Okay, so are we still the lucky country? Absolutely. Are we going to be the luckiest? Well, that's what I'm talking about today. I'm going to talk about the disruptive power of superannuation, how it's distorted the nation, but more importantly, how it actually affects you as individuals. So we need to wind back the clock, firstly, 30 years to when SG contributions first came compulsory. Back then we had a meagre 146 billion in the superannuation system. We now have 3.5 trillion, 23 times the figure. Now that is going to have some significant effect on society. The first thing is around our wealth. Our household wealth has gone from 2.5 trillion to 14 trillion just in the last 20 years. And most importantly, it's actually rocketed us up the charts in terms of wealth per adult globally. We've gone from the ranking of 15th to now 4th in the world in terms of most wealthy nation on the planet based on wealth per adult. So my shocking prediction, apart from the Broncos winning the NRL, is that we will be the wealthiest country on the planet, wealthiest nation on the planet, and we will go to number one within the next 20 years. Now, it's not rocket science. We talked about compounding with Miller today, the power of compounding. The average member balance will go to 439,000 over the next 20 years. That's more than double. The superannuation pot will more than triple to 9 to 10 trillion from where we are now, 3.5 trillion. So, who cares? What's this all matter? We all know about superannuation, we know the power of compounding, but what's it mean to you? The first thing is if you own an advice business or you own an asset management business, don't sell it. Whatever you do, don't sell the business. If you do want to sell it, we'll probably buy it. But if you don't want to, don't sell it. If you're an advisor or you have an advice asset management business, you must be targeting millennials now. Millennials will have the biggest pool of real assets in superannuation in the world, well, in the history of super in Australia. The reason is I've grown up with super. We've got 12% SG contributions going in for that generation. They're typically dual income households, and they will be the longest living. They'll live into mid-90s as a generation as well. So the compounding effect is enormous. You must target millennials. Forget about Macquarie. Superannuation is the millennial millionaires factory. In terms of asset management business, you can be really bad at distribution in asset management. You could have whatever fund you've got now and do nothing, and you'll have 3 times the value of your business. So don't sell it. The second thing is around the property and equity market bears. And let me talk... Christopher gave me a little nod there, Christopher. Now, in terms of property market bears, the often quoted debt to disposable income ratio really gets the Chicken Little's wings a-flapping about the outlook for the Australian residential property market. And for good reason, we have borrowed more money. 187% of our disposable income from 110. But one ratio that we never get quoted for some reason is the debt to assets. The explosive growth in our asset pool has meant the debt to assets ratio has gone absolutely nowhere, 16% to 17%. So the problem in Australia with household debt levels is we're not borrowing enough. Now, I'd like to call out a special mention to those of you in the Sydney eastern suburbs because, you know, you're doing a great job for the nation to get that ratio up. In terms of equity market and the outlook for equity market, 30% of flows from super go into the equity market in Australia, domestic equities. So the issue is not about whether the equity market is going to be up in 20 years' time. It will be up. The issue that we have is ASX going to cope with that. Will there be enough companies, or do we have to buy CSL on 100 times earnings? Consumer spending, we're battling around consumer spending. Why is it so resilient? The reason it's so resilient is when you don't have to save, you can spend. So if you've got 12% going to super, you can spend 100% of your income. I mentioned the millennials and how they're going to be a massive cohort in terms of superannuation. They're going to have a massive balance. In 20 years, they're going to start drawing on that balance. And superannuation is going to drive consumption. And superannuation is millennials. So millennials will drive consumption in Australia. So I envisage a future of 20 years where we're all wearing Lululemon activewear. You mentioned avocado toast, acai bowls everywhere. and pursuing life experiences, whatever that is. In terms of monetary policy, it becomes ineffective. We enter sort of the bizarro world of monetary policy where Superman is bad and everything is opposite. We put interest rates up, that increases people's incomes, increases consumption, and actually drive the economy. If you want to put the brakes on the economy going forward, you actually have to reduce interest rates. And then we saw a recent example. This is not in the mega future. Commonwealth Bank pulled this out of their result around the change in behaviour by cohort. So the 55-year-olds plus are actually spending more. And the reason is they've got more income. And lastly, which is not that surprising to anyone in the room, but industry funds will dominate the honeypot of superannuation. 50% of the honeypot. They'll own 20% of the equity market. They'll deepen the bond market in Australia, which needs deepening. They'll control property values. They'll move together in syndicates to hoover up private assets and private companies. And if you're a listed company and an industry super fund owns your equity and your debt, then what's that mean for the board composition? What's that mean in terms of management? And what's that mean in terms of governance going forward? So that's it. We will go from being the lucky country to the luckiest. We will be the #1 in the world. So you do need to worry about some of those distortionary impacts of superannuation. You do need to be aware of some of these opportunities, but what you don't need to be is bearish, so buy Australia.